Our cover story tonight is from Afghanistan, a country that has been at war for most of its existence. The latest one has been on for more than 17 years now. But that's not what we'll talk about tonight. It's a country that faces serious security threats. A peace deal is being discussed. Multiple rounds of talks done, it's going nowhere, and that too is not our focus. Tonight we'll discuss a sex scandal that has triggered a political storm. A scandal that poses a security and safety threat to the people who have exposed it. It's a bombshell that Afghanistan could have done without, and of all places, it dropped on the presidential palace. The Ashraf Ghani government is staring at an uncertain future. Elections have been long pending. They may happen later this year. America and Russia are talking to the Taliban without taking this government on board, and now it faces serious charges of impropriety. Former officials of this government have levied these charges. They say the presidential palace demands sexual favors for promotions in government posts. It's a very, very damaging allegation, especially for a government that is already standing on rickety legs. The first claim emerged last week. The man making the claim was General Habibullah Ahmadzai. He is a former senior advisor to the president. He gave an interview in Afghanistan on television. He said that he left his job due to rampant corruption in the presidential palace. Now, in the same breath, he said this, and I'm quoting, "People were working systematically for promoting adultery in the palace. Everyone is aware of it." Since then, many others have spoken out. Former government employees have made similar claims. It would be fair to say that the Me Too movement, or a movement of sorts that started in the West, has now reached Afghanistan. Another former member of the Afghan government supported these charges. Over the weekend, Wion spoke to Mariam Wardak. She has served as a consultant to the Afghanistan National Security Advisor. Now, Mariam Wardak told us that the charges levied by General Ahmadzai reflect the reality in Afghanistan. Here's a snippet from that conversation.
So the Special Security Advisor in Ada camp, one may take General Ahmadzai's interview as someone scorned that understanding the issues he brought up and highlight reflect reality. Presidential palace is the center of government. Anything that is happening in the palace is a reflection of how President Ghani's government is run. Unfortunately, General Ahmadzai enumerated that many pervert and corrupt activities that supposed individuals have a stranglehold of Ghani's government. This said, we have to bring attention that, unfortunately and saddening, this has become a rallying cause for the Taliban and Islamic jihadists. I believe that Afghan women should be concerned that the actions of very few could result in the cause of strengthening application of Sharia, as well as traditional archaic customs of isolating and denying the progress of Afghan women. So, in my personal experience, I tried my best when I was at the Office of the National Security Council for my attire and my image to be extremely modest, culturally and religious attire, appropriate with no makeup. Perception is reality in Afghanistan, and the sensitivities are extremely high.
Well, the nature of these charges is very serious, but it's not yet clear which government official has made such demands, how many of these people were involved. The government of Afghanistan has vocally denied these charges. A government spokesperson said the accusations are false and baseless. But he also added that there will be a serious investigation into the claims. It's worth looking at the background here, and there are two aspects to this story that cannot be ignored. First, the presidential elections in Afghanistan. They're just months away. They were scheduled to be held in April. That didn't happen. President Ashraf Ghani is running for a second term. The presidential palace has another story to tell. They say that General Ahmadzai, the man who made these charges first, has political aspirations. General Ahmadzai ran for parliament last year in 2018. He lost that election. According to a report in the New York Times, he also tried to get his old job back as the advisor, but he was not hired. He has served as a senior advisor to the president, so it could well be political propaganda. We cannot confirm that. The second aspect to the story is the present-day situation of Afghanistan. There has been no headway in the peace deal negotiations with the Taliban. Meanwhile, the terror group has stepped up its attacks. So the Ashraf Ghani government is not just weak and a lame duck, it's now also tainted. These charges may or may not damage his re-election bid. But for those who are speaking out now, this is a harrowing time, especially for Mariam Wardak. After her interview to Wion, she has been facing a witch hunt. She says that she feels threatened. The country's Attorney General has now issued a summons to her. On the web, Mariam Wardak has been facing an angry backlash. One post on Facebook called her a liar. Another one on Twitter called her a hypocrite. But no one has spoken out about General Habibullah Ahmadzai, who was the first one to make these claims. The fact is, in fact, that the charges of corruption against the government are not new. Claims of money changing hands had also emerged during the presidency of Hamid Karzai. But in recent times, allegations of sexual abuse have spiked. In the past, officials working with the women's football team faced charges of sexual abuse. 5 of them were suspended last year for sexually abusing female players. The team's head coach had to turn to FIFA for help. The court said that Afghan officials cannot be relied upon to properly investigate claims of sexual abuse. The World Football Body, FIFA, also conducted an investigation. But the allegations against the Afghan government could kick up a storm. Afghanistan is an extremely conservative society. Even moderate urban men often hesitate to let women work. That is the truth of this country. Many fear a retaliation from the Taliban that vocally opposes a woman's right to work. And Taliban controls a huge chunk of this country, the territory. Earlier this year, we had spoken to Mariam Wardak about her experiences while working with the government in Afghanistan and how the modern Afghan citizens might push back against the forced oppression of women by the Taliban.
I replicate patriarchal vices through my communication, my attire, and how I interact with the public. And the only reason why I replicate it is in order to find areas of how I can help other females advance. So when I was at the Office of the National Security Council, I was very simple in my communication, very quiet. I only listened, provided documents. But however, I was able to identify areas on how I can recruit women. When I first joined, there was only 12 women at the Office of the National Security Council. When I left, there were 36. So you have to, if you can't beat them, join them, I guess.
That's a good philosophy. The return of the Taliban and their potential rule in the days ahead, given the way the peace talks are progressing, you said that Afghan women are not ready to go back. But is there a concern that, first of all, you're not party to conversation or dialogues that are going to impact your lives the most? The Afghan government of the day is not a participant in any of the peace talks, whether it be the American-led or the Russian-led. And especially women and the youth whose life is going to be impacted if such a regime change happens. Is there a plan B? Is there concern, trepidation in the society about what is coming?
Well, just today there was an article in the New York Times by 2 young Afghan women and how they were talking about the spread of fear. I think it's more that we need to hold responsibility, and the Afghan people need to demand their government be a part of any type of discussions. The Afghan women are not the women and the people pre-Taliban period. So it's not this blank slate that you could come and all of a sudden control and operate how you wish. These women, men, young individuals are educated. They've understood and felt economic autonomy, and they've had a taste of freedom. So they're not going to just allow anybody to come there and tell them that this is how you will be, no school, no work, stay at home. There will be a strong rebellious against that.